Hi there. My name is Uriah Jones. This is the second in a series of installments to discuss the ideas set out in a book I've written entitled On the Nature of Consciousness. I'm the author, Uriah Jones. Oh, the book is available on Amazon if you're interested in reading it. In the second installment, I want to try to bring out into the open or bring into consciousness how we, and I'm going to have to do some reading because this is kind of complicated, how we construct in our minds reality, and how reality and its structures that are created in our minds is used by us in everything we do, everything we say. These structures, which I call the narrative, are stories about, contexts about everything, about what smells are, meaning what they designate. Smoke, there's an idea of smoke in your head, and an association with smoke as barbecue cooking, as fire, as dangerous, as pleasurable, as perfume, friendship, reality itself. They're all structures that we put together in our head that we refer to in our daily living to basically get through the gauntlet of life, to understand the gauntlet of life, to understand what we want to be, what other people are, what we are, everything. So I'm going to have to do some reading as I do this. So, glasses. Social action, concerted action, doing things together, hunting, watching a football game, playing a football game, requires a shared and fixed narrative about each of those things. I'm going to talk about basketball and cooking a little later on, and I think it might make sense. Reality itself has to be a fixed, immutable context which serves as a reference or a starting point. In other words, life can't exist until we decide, for example, we're going to play a game of basketball. And to do that, we have to have in our mind what a court is, and what a basketball is, and what the scoring system is, and what teams are, and what players have what responsibility in this game. What the outcome of the game is, rack up points. In the context of making or baking a cake, you have to have in your mind what a cake is. So then you set about to reproduce that in your cooking by using certain amounts of flour or sugar or whatever. And you know if it's a good cake versus a bad cake if it lives up to this idea you have in your mind about what a good cake is. Without an idea of what a good cake is, or what a cake is at all, you simply can't bake a cake. Same is true of the landscape. You have to have an idea of what a tree is, what a lion is, what another person is, what a waterfall is, so that as you traverse the real world, when you run into these things, you know what they are and you know what the dangers are and you know what they're used for. They don't have some meaning out there by themselves or used by themselves. In fact, if something in the landscape is of no value or doesn't have an assigned value or use or purpose, then basically it's not there. You just don't see it. There might be, you don't, it's not really there. Ooh, isn't that a pretty thing? And that's about as far as it goes. And you probably won't even notice the pretty thing unless you bump into it or something. It's just not there. When it has no use as described in some narrative about its use and value that's fixed in your head. And this is true of, as I've said, of trees, of landscape, of yourself, of other people, of other social groups. The narrative in your head is an immutable reality, a landscape, a story about the meaning and purpose of life, as by the way is hers. And you will defend that reality to the death, preferably their death, not your death. Without a structure of reality, without an idea of who you are, without an idea of what a landscape is, what a child is, what love is, you don't have any reality at all. There's nothing. But this reality, once you create it, the narratives, once it's created in your head, it is the source of expectations and success and failure and disappointment and problems and by the way, the demonization of others. What existence really is charted reality. It's saying what that stuff out there is and the stuff in your brain is because you've charted its meaning. You said a tree is a place of shade. Oh, chicken is something to eat. Existence is charted reality. If reality isn't charted, that is defined, if you don't give it meaning vis-a-vis some usefulness, it doesn't exist. Self is the awareness of being a discrete player in the charted reality. Oh, it's me that is reaching for that rock. Oh, it's me that is feeling pain or love or whatever. The process of maturation is the building of the charted reality. That is to say, the narratives, analogs that are the repository of the structure of the corporeal, what's out there, world, and the ethereal world, what's in there. Now, why is it important to have a theory of mind? Why is that important? The most obvious reason is that in our experience, we can't gain control of anything in a predictable way, in a non-magical way, unless we understand how it works. So, for example, a screw is worthless to you unless you have a narrative understanding of what you can do with a screw, what it's for. I can attach things, I can detach things, I can move water with a device that looks like a screw. So existence is the narrative, those stories. Nothing can exist without a story about it and a narrative fixed in your mind. So it may sound like repetition, but persons or things cannot exist unless there is a narrative that describes the person or thing. A person or thing is not permitted to undertake any function out of the existing narrative about that thing. Why do I bring that up? Well, the narrative is not reality, it's your structure of reality. Give you some examples. Until recently, and maybe even now, a woman, for example, can't really be a politician because the narrative says that she doesn't lead, she's strident, she's not capable of leading. It's just not in the nature of a woman. And this is, even though it's demonstrably not true. Women are as capable as men of doing these things. The real irony in life is the flip side of the story is that you have an idea that we should put women in power because they are pure or less driven by testosterone or whatever. But the minute they get the power men have, they are as easily corrupted and interested in controlling as men are. So it's about the story. Certain, I mean, for the longest period of time, although a black person could be a member of a football team, could never be the quarterback because didn't have the mental capacity. Everybody knows it. I mean, that's what's written in the narrative. A black person doesn't have the ability to put things together in a way that's necessary to be the quarterback of a football team. So now I want to demonstrate to you that you know how reality is built. You manipulate the structure in everything you do in every day of your life. Let's just do a few examples. How did we create the game of basketball? What was necessary before we ended up with this sport of basketball or football or tennis or hunting, or let's use basketball? Well, you've got to have in your mind that basketball is played on a court, a defined area of certain dimensions, and only within that court. If you step outside the boundaries of that court, then, the ball's dead. You have to have the basketball itself, something to bounce around. You have to decide, what am I bouncing around for? Oh, well, maybe it's to put a ball in a hoop. So you have to create a hoop. Or have a reference in your mind about a hoop, and that points are made when the ball goes through the hoop. So there have to be rules about how many times you can bounce the ball before you lose it. There has to be rules about blocking and fouls and all the rest of it. And if none of that exists, and that's all in your head, you can't play basketball. You don't know when a point is fairly made. You don't know when a foul occurs. You don't know. Same with writing a poem. There are ideas in our mind about fixed ideas, about the structure of a poem and what's the purpose of it, or a book, or a movie, or themes of a movie, Romeo and Juliet, love crossed or crossed love, or uh, forbidden love, uh, overcoming adversity. But you have to have an idea of what overcoming is, what adversity is, fixed in your mind as a starting point. Without that reference, nothing exists. How do you know, without seeing a fire in the mountains, how do you know that there's a fire? It's because you've got fixed in your mind what fire smells like. Fire that is destroying a forest. And when you sniff the air and that smell comes up, the reference props up in your head, the analog, the narrative about that smell is something burning, and it smells like it's a forest, so the forest is burning and it's getting stronger, it's coming in my direction, I better run away. Without that fixed picture in your mind, there's no existence, there's no reality. The same is true of marriage, the same is true of government, of wife, of child, what to eat. There is a fixed picture in your mind, a narrative, a story about everything. And it is, you cannot think of anything that's not true of. And there's another implication, there's another proof to the average white person. A cop is someone who's looking out for your interests, who protects you, who you call when there's a problem. To many non-whites, a cop is an oppressor. It's in the news all the time. So their reality about a cop is he's an oppressor, he's going to take advantage of you, he's going to beat you up. A white person, generally, impression, I guess, unless they're poor, is that a cop, you call them to take care of you and all the rest of them. So the cop can't be both things if there's an immutable reality about a cop. He can only be one or the other. But in fact, some people see him as oppressor and some don't, the same person. So that idea about a cop is a narrative in your head. The same is true of my religion versus your religion, my country versus your country. It is hard to believe for us, but I guarantee you that Putin believes, it's Putin's narrative, his belief, his reality, that there is a manifest destiny and right to take Ukraine, because in his narrative it is a part of Russia that has been stolen and taken from him. And all he is trying to do is restore the integrity of the narrative, of the truth about what Russia is, what his country is. And he casts the Ukrainians as devil and demonizes them to justify taking what the narrative says. He says is his. And the Ukrainians are fighting that because that view of Ukraine is contrary to their national narrative. Why am I telling you this or discussing this with you? Because you already know that that reality, that the self, all of it are ideas in your mind. They're not out there. They're really not immutable. They are a creation of the mind. And it's not just your mind. We tend to share these ideas if we reside within a group. We know what our position is. We know what our entitlements are and all the rest of it. Understanding the structure and how it works is imperative to gaining control over yourself and how we live our lives and how we treat other people. And it's especially important because we finally have enough power to destroy ourselves and our planet because we have the knowledge of how things work without understanding the implications of what we do. So again, this is the second installment. There'll be others. The name of the book is On the Nature of Consciousness. It's available on Amazon, as I've already indicated. Thanks again for listening to me.